Here's a good question from Adam. Asks you, what formation do you think England should play at the Euros?
Well, it's a difficult one because you're asking somebody to do a job for them, but, you know, in anticipation of that, I mean, this was, in the last tournament, I was quite critical of how England was set up. This is the game that they went out against Germany. And when we talk about straight-line football, you know, the subs aren't right there at the bottom of the page. We've just put those in because we might change it up a little bit in a short while. But when we talk about straight-line football, the best way and the most simplistic way that I can actually demonstrate it to the people at home is to actually draw a grid formation. And it's not always like this because players do move. But when you play against the likes of Germany, you know, closer will probably up here. It'll probably be Muller, actually, who would go into these sorts of spaces. Özil, they don't go and stand out there against Africa.
He caused a lot of damage in that game.
They drift into these sort of areas. Podolski, we know, I mean, what an exciting, you know, it's going to be to see him next season. Again, they play in those channels in between players. Schweinsteiger will play at the side of Frank Lampard if it's him. Khedira, we know from Real Madrid. Boateng will move forward, and this is just a hypothetical.
Was that the problem, Gary?
They play in between. They play in between. They don't just play conventionally, you know, foreign teams. When we talk about cultures and we talk about playing against like Portugal, Spain, France, they play in these sorts of areas. They never make it easy for you to mark them. So what inevitably happens, and this has happened in every single tournament that I've played for England, you back 4 goals in tight. We'll just clear that for a minute so we can get rid of that grid. You back 4 goals in tight. Sorry, just get rid of that. In there. And they almost become compact and you can sort of throw a blanket over them. Then your midfield sort of sags back into this sort of area because they're worried about Muller. And Milner will come in here. And then inevitably, they get dragged back. So if the ball comes over, say, for instance, let's move these 2 centre-backs up here. If the ball, say, comes over from Mertesacker into Boateng there, inevitably what will happen is that the whole of the team will shift across. This is typically how England will end up in a tournament. They'll all flow across to one side, working hard, without the ball. You know, Wayne Rooney might come over into here. But then when they win the ball, it's impossible to get out quickly into your attacking shape. And you end up chasing the ball and you end up being dominated by in possession. And as it comes to the second phase games, the quarter-finals, you end up, the other teams have worn you down. And it's sort of an effect over a period of 2 weeks that happens in tournaments where England play in a very compact 4-4-2 formation. We know Roy Hodgson...
Yeah, that's what I want to ask you. You know Roy Hodgson is going to do what? What do you think he'll do?
We know Roy Hodgson favours playing 4-4-2 and he likes the idea of having 2 men up front. Now, the issue with that is, all right, let's say Steven Gerrard was in here and it was Barry and Lampard sort of moving forward. The issue with that is it becomes difficult actually to get out of your shape in your defensive shape, to get into that system. So I think what England have to be doing this, let's say that was Kyle Walker there that comes in for, if I can get him on. He's not working for us at the moment. Let's pretend...
That happened a lot with England with the right back.
Yeah, you could never get him actually in his position. But Kyle Walker is somebody who can sprint forward into his shape out of defence. You know we've got the likes of Oxlade-Chamberlain who can potentially come into these types of areas. We know that Gerrard, fantastic player. You know, we know we've got legs. You know, Ashley Young. I mean, if we go to the actual game against Holland, which was the last game that we played, which was in this one, and it's a bit more progressive in that, you know, we played, but still the same problems will occur. You know, De Jong, Van Bommel, Robin will not stay there. You know, Kite might stay a little bit wider, but you'll end up with a collection of players in that midfield. So if you've got the likes of Chamberlain that comes in for Johnson, say, and you've got Walker who'll come in here, all of a sudden you've got English players who are happy to operate in these types of areas. You know, in spaces that are not easy to mark. You might have to. You're going to have to bring in probably Frank Lampard, let's say, for Scott Parker. I'm not picking England teams here, but you've got to get off the grid. England teams have got to start playing possession football off that straight 4-4-2 grid. Now, in terms of how Roy Hodgson's going to go about it, we know he favours going 2 up front, but it's how he gets that depth in midfield and he gets players to be able to move into those spaces, those off the front type spaces, those spaces where, you know, you think of Frank Lampard, you want him in. So let's say that Van Bommel, you want him in these sorts of areas. You want Steven Gerrard coming into spaces in between. You know that Welbeck will come in here And it's just making sure England can get into a more continental style game of, and way of football.